Hello, everyone, and we're starting on page 185 for Zach's Lie, the read aloud. Now, where we left off, Peter went to talk to his friend Hector, who we now know is Alonzo. He demanded a little bit extra money and kind of played all of his cards, and Alonzo is now going to use him for convenience. And if he doesn't help, well, what's going to happen to Peter? We're going to find out here. Also, right now, Zach is missing, and Sam is out looking for him. Sam saw people in his house, and Sam knows that the Grangers have been discovered. But how does Sam know this? Let's find out. We're starting on page 185 for today. So where we kind of left off, he says the Grangers had been discovered. He went through the house quickly. In Zach's room, he found the Jack-in-the-Box, a pile of journals, and a tiny astronaut. On the way back to the hotel, he made one more stop. So what did he try and get when he went back for one more stop? Let's find out. Cold and discouraged, Zach walked back to the Nevada hotel. When he got there, he knocked on Sam's door and was relieved that Sam didn't answer. He went into his room and got ready for bed. There was nothing more he could do that night. He would go back to Peter's first thing in the morning and wait there all day if it's what it took. As he was getting under the covers, there was a knock on the door. Zach knew who it was. "Come in." Zach stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "Where were you?" "Sorry about that," Zach said. "I forgot something at home. I ran into Daryl and we started playing video games and I lost track of time." "I went to Daryl's." Sam looked directly at him. "He hadn't seen you. Suppose you tell me what's really going on." Sam did not seem angry, which surprised Zach. "There's nothing going on." "You're in more trouble than you know, Zach." Sam walked over to the bed and sat down on the edge. "Everything's fine," Zach insisted. "All I want to do is go to sleep." Sam glanced around the room as if he was making a decision about something. He closed his eyes for a moment, then looked at Zach. "I used to have a son," he said. "When he was young, I would come to his bedroom at night like this and tell him stories before he went to sleep." "Where is he now?" Zach asked. "He died." "I'm sorry." "I am too. I'd like to tell you a story, Zach." Sam cleared his throat, then began. "A long time ago, there was a Russian boy who had a very good ear for music. He played the piano, and everyone said he was a musical prodigy. But he wasn't. He was just a boy who loved to listen and play music on the piano. The boy grew up, went to school, and they discovered that not only did he have a good ear for music, he also had a good ear for foreign languages. By the time he was 15, he was fluent in 5 languages, and he spoke those languages with perfect accents. You?" Sam did not answer the question. So the boy gave up his music. He was sent to special schools, and when he graduated, they sent him to live in many different countries. On one of his trips back home, he fell in love and got married. He had a son, but he did not see his son very often because he was always away for long periods of time, sometimes years. During one of the times away, his son got very ill. His wife tried to get in touch with him, but the people he worked for would not pass the message along to him. It was the policy at the time. When he finally returned home, his son has died and his wife had left him. He was filled with grief and rage, and he could not be consoled. The people he worked for were very worried about him, and with good reason. During his travels, this man had learned a great deal. He carried secrets in his head that could cause immense harm to many people. He knew it was only a matter of time before someone tried to remove this threat. One day, the man was walking past a house with an open window. Someone inside was playing a song on the piano that he used to play when he was a child. He stood outside that window and cried. When the song ended, the man knew what he had to do. He had to share the secrets. Sam stopped speaking. Zach stared at him, wondering why he was being told this story. "There comes a time, Zach, when you have to trust someone. I'm going to ask you again. What's going on?" Zach trusted Sam, but if he told who he was, there was no hope for the Granger staying in Elko. He didn't answer. "How's your eyesight, Zach?" "What do you mean?" "It's a pretty simple question. My eyesight is fine." Why do you wear blue contacts?" Zach looked down at the contact case on the table next to his bed. "I'll tell you another story," Sam said. "There was a boy who came to Elko Middle School, and he wasn't who he said he was. He was in the witness security program, and his name was Jack Osborne." Zach gave up. "How did you know?" "Because I read the journals in your backpack. Both of them." Peter had his hands and feet tied and was belted into his seat. The gag had been removed and his left eye was turning black. But these were the least of his problems at the moment because Alonzo had just come aboard and taken the seat opposite of him. "I do not have a lot of time, Peter." He took a knife out of his pocket and flipped the blade open. "I need to know where Jack Osborne is. I need to know this right now." Peter said nothing. "You are probably thinking I'm going to kill you regardless of what you say," Alonzo continued. You may be right about this, but there are many ways to die. I understand you're angry, that I cheated you, and you do not want to help me anymore. Peter saw a movement outside the small window. A man wearing coveralls ducked under the wing. Alonzo reached over and closed the window shade. These airplanes are soundproof, he said quietly. I have no desire to kill you, but I will if you refuse to answer my questions. And I promise you that I will do it very slowly, and it will be very painful. He put the sharp tip of the blade just below Peter's eye. Peter tried to move his head, but one of the other men came up behind him and held it steady. Where's Jack Osborne? Alonzo asked. I don't know, Peter said hoarsely. I'm sorry to hear that. Peter felt the knife tip prick his skin. Peter closed his eyes tightly and shouted, He might be at the Nevada Hotel. The blade was pulled back a fraction of an inch. Tell me more. Peter told him everything he knew. You were a spy? Zack asked, incredulous. We preferred to think of ourselves as intelligent officers, but at times that was an exaggeration. I was a colonel in the KGB, which is similar to your Central Intelligence Agency. How long have you been here? I defected 20 years ago. It caused quite a stir, but none of the course is this what made it caused quite a stir, but of course none of this made it into yours newspapers. Why did you defect? I was tired. I did not want to work for the KGB anymore. Once you know things, they don't let you leave. My only hope was to come over here and disappear. Now let's talk about the Osborns. You're not the only one who knows, Zack said. He explained the situation with Peter Short. I went over to his trailer to try to talk him into keeping his mouth shut long enough to keep me to contact our handlers. I'm hoping they have a way of controlling him so we don't have to leave Elko. It's too late, Zack. Sam told him about the men he saw leaving the house. Impossible, Zack asked. Peter doesn't know anything about the men in my father's journal. I don't know anything about them until I discovered Dad's journal. I suspect they were already in Elko looking for you and Peter found your journal. Have you seen any strangers hanging around? No, Zack said. Then he remembered the man in the balcony. He told Sam about him. We thought he was a parent. He could have been. Maybe the men you thought were thieves. Everyone in Elko knows that Mom is in Los Angeles and I'm staying at Nevada. Sam smiled. The 3 E's in Elko. No, I don't think so. The 2 men weren't carrying anything when they left your house. And by the way they tossed everything around, they were looking for something specific. They didn't find it, Zack said, glancing at the dresser. Should I call the police? Not yet. I think I should call your mother first. I already tried that. There must have been a mix-up with their hotel. They aren't there. Do you have your handler's phone numbers? Zack shook his head. Do you know his name? We have 2, Uncle Don and Aunt Doris. We'll need last names. Zack thought for a moment. I think the names are Doris Welty and Donald Smites, but I don't even know where they live. I'll find them. Sam stood up. I still have a few friends from my old life who might be able to help. Let's go to my room. Caitlin stayed up long after her parents had gone to bed. For the past 2 hours, she had been lying on the sofa in front of the TV with a cordless phone in her hand. She had lost track of how many times she had called Sam. She tried again, and this time his phone was busy. At least he's there, she thought. Sam hung the phone up and looked at Zack. My friend will contact your handlers. What about my mom and sister? The federal marshals will find them and put them into protective custody until we can get this straightened out. And me? You're stuck with me until your handlers arrive. Do you have a gun? Zack asked. Heavens no, Sam said. I've never even owned a gun. Spies were then, I would probably still be in the trade. Remember how the Phantom used traps in the novel? Zack nodded. Well, he would have been a great spy. Real spies use anticipation, guile, deceit, and they're very good at setting traps. When these fail, we run and hide, which isn't very romantic, but it works. I'm taking you up to the sheep camp, where you'll be safe. While you're getting your things, I'll tell Benet that we'll come back down for him tomorrow morning when things are clear. Caitlin redialed Sam's number. It rang and rang, but no one answered. I don't believe this. She tossed the phone onto the sofa, put her coat on, and stepped out into the cold desert night. Chapter 24. Zack sat next to Sam, clutching the backpack in his lap and trying not to think about how much trouble he and his family were in because of his mistake. They'd have to start all over again. New city, new house, new names. Joanne would not play Christine. His mom would not open the bookstore. Zack might not ever see Caitlin again. The Basques have been taking refuge in the mountains for hundreds of years, Sam said. They were about 15 miles outside of Elko, and this was the first thing he had said since they pulled away from the Nevada. Sam glanced at the backpack in Zack's lap. I didn't tell my handler about your father's journal. I assume he's using it to make a deal. My dad's not making a deal, Zach's anger flared. He wants to get these guys as bad as anybody. I think the only reason he held it back is to make sure we're safe. Take a deep breath, Zach, Sam said gently. All I'm saying is that I think it's best we keep the journal to ourselves. We'll get it to him when this is all over. Zach was surprised at his outburst. Sorry, Sam held his hand up. You don't have to apologize for anything. None of this is your fault. How can you say that? If I hadn't kept a journal and let Peter Short get his hands on it, we'd be back at the Nevada sleeping. It wasn't the journal that brought the men to Elko, Sam said. They figured out the town you were in on their own. It was only a matter of time before they found out where you lived. Zach was still not convinced. Sounds like spy logic to me. Sam laughed. You might be right. We do have our own way of looking at things. They drove a few more miles in silence. Then Sam said, I need to have you do something for me, Zach. Okay. If we get unlucky and run into these men, you have to promise you'll follow my lead. What do you mean? I want you to try and stay calm. You can't think clearly if your mind is jumping all over the place. Second, I want you to do exactly as I say without question. I have been in circumstances like this more times than I care to remember, and I used to be very good at it. What I'm asking is for you to trust me. I trust you. Sam turned off the highway onto a dirt road. Caitlin knocked lightly on Sam's door. When there was no answer, she tried Zach's door. Come in. She opened the door and stepped into the dark room. The light came on. Sitting on the bed was a man dressed in black. You must be Kat, he said. Peter had told him all about the Cristobal family. Before she could react, someone came up behind her and put a hand over her mouth. Caitlin struggled, but it was no use. The man holding her was too strong. The man on the bed took a knife out of his pocket and flipped open the blade. Where is Zach? He asked quietly. The man holding her took his hand away. I don't know, Caitlin cried hoarsely. There was a knock at the door, and the man holding her clamped his hand over her mouth. Zach? It was Benet. Is everything all right? I thought you and I are going up to the sheep camp. The man on the bed smiled and said, Bring the girl to me, and opened the door. The man holding Caitlin pushed her towards the bed. Ander was standing outside the tent with a flashlight when Sam and Zach drove up. Sam walked over and explained the situation to Ander and Basque. How long will we stay up here, Zach asked Sam. I don't know. I'll drive down to the highway late tomorrow morning and check in at the Nevada to see if your handlers have arrived. They went into the tent where it was warm. Ander gave Zach a loaf of bread and set a wheel of cheese down on the table in front of him. Zach was not interested in eating. He listened to Ander and Sam talk and Basque for a while, then went over to one of the cots and lay down. It's not a bad idea, Sam said. We shall all try to get some sleep. I have some sleeping bags in the back of the truck. He came back into the tent a moment later, carrying 2 bags, and tossed one to Zach. I'll sleep on the floor, Zach said. There are only 2 cots. Suits me, Sam said, and unrolled his bag in the second cot. When everyone was settled, Ander turned off the Coleman lantern. Zach was exhausted, but he couldn't sleep. His mind replayed his mistakes over and over again. He was worried about his mother and sister. Were they okay? How long would it take the U.S. Marshals to find them in Los Angeles? He thought about Caitlin. He missed her already. How would he feel if he had to move away and never see her again? He listened to the men's breathing inside the tent. They seemed to have no trouble finding sleep. Unai the shepherd. With all the other things that had happened, the news that Elko Middle School custodian was a former Russian spy and defector seemed almost like a dream. He wondered if Sam had offered to build his mother's bookstore and have him clean out the building so he could keep a closer eye on the Grangers. Zach closed his eyes and listened to the sheep on the hillside. After a while, he fell into a fitful sleep. Unai! Benet shouted from outside the tent. Zach sat up. Sam was already on his feet. 2 flashlight beams danced along the outside walls of the canvas tent like giant fireflies. They have Caitlin, Benet said from outside. I'm sorry, but they want the boy in exchange for her. Send the boy out to me. Zach recognized the voice. He had heard it in his dreams many times. It's him, he said. Who? Sam asked. One of the men who came to our house. Listen to me very carefully, the man said. No harm will come to the girl or the old man if you do as we say. What do you want? Sam asked. I want you to turn a light on in the tent. I will come inside and we will discuss it. And no heroics, please. Your friends will pay for any problem you cause. Sam whispered to Zach, Stay calm, follow my lead, and remember the number 8. What are you talking about? You'll understand when the time comes. Ander lit the Coleman lantern. Come on in, Sam said. The flap opened and Monet was pushed inside, followed by a man with a ponytail holding an automatic pistol. Zach recognized him immediately from his father's sketch, and he realized this was not the first time he had seen him. It was the same man he had seen in the balcony during his sister's audition, Alonzo Asnar. Benet looked like he wanted to maul Alonzo. Ander put his hand on his shoulder and shook his head. Benet sat down on the cot and clamped his hands between his knees, as if that was the only way he could stop them from tearing Alonzo apart. "Where's Caitlin?" Sam asked. "Outside," Alonzo said. "We have done no harm to her." He looked at Zach. "So we meet again, Jack." Zach said nothing. "What do you want?" Sam asked. "Jack knows what I want," Alonzo said calmly. Zach glanced at the backpack lying near the cot. Inside the backpack was the key to his father's cell. Outside the tent was an innocent girl who had nothing to do with this. He knew what she was going through, the confusion, the fear, all because of him. "You'll let Caitlin go?" Zach asked. "Of course," Alonzo said easily. "I have no quarrel with these people." Zach looked at Sam. "Let the girl go first," Sam said. Alonzo cocked the pistol and pointed at Sam's chest. "You are in no position to bargain." Sam didn't appear at all concerned by the gun. In fact, he seemed somewhat amused by it, as if Alonzo were pointing nothing more dangerous than his index finger. "Let Caitlin go, and we'll give you what you want." The two men stared at each other for a long time in the dim light. "Very well," Alonzo finally said, then shouted for Caitlin to be brought inside. The car door opened a few minutes later, and Caitlin was pushed through the tent flap, followed by Paul, who was also carrying a pistol. Caitlin stepped over to Benet and threw her arms around him. We'll stop there for today. I went a little over, I think, the time, but that's okay. We're in a great spot. See you guys later. Have a good day. Bye-bye.